Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Paula Pettit, and I am the head of business development at Linim Labs. We are a smart contract and blockchain product development house. Today, I will be talking about bonding curves, which is a type of smart contract that we've been developing quite a bit of recently and have seen quite a bit of demand, so wanted to dive into them a little bit more today. So what is a bonding curve? So a bonding curve is basically a smart contract that allows users to mint and burn along a predetermined algorithm. And the pricing algorithm is basically a graphable curve that defines the relationship between the token supply and the price, where the price of the token increases with the amount of tokens that have been minted. So the flow. So a smart contract basically, as I said, allows a user to mint and burn off of the predetermined algorithm. The price is usually determined in a reserve currency. We like to use DAI because it's a stable currency. If you do your reserve currency as Ethereum, obviously your price is going to fluctuate with the price of Ethereum as well. So it's a little bit of increased volatility, so we like to do it on a stable coin. With the reserve currency, such as DAI, the user can then go to the smart contract and buy their bonding curve token. So they can mint it depending on how much they want. The DAI they send in will then go to the smart contract and be reserved there until other people want to come and burn and take the reserve currency out. The price will move along the bonding curve in relation to the amount of supply the user has minted. So it'll move the price up for future buyers. And at any time, as I said, the user can come and burn and sell their token back on it, and they'll likely, if the price has gone up at that point, obviously make some return on that. So there are a couple key features to bonding curves. The first thing is the determined price. So before it even launches, you know at what price it's going to be depending on the amount of tokens minted. It also has a continuous price, so if you can also develop a stable coin on a bonding curve, but basically every other bonding curve will go up with more tokens minted. And it has immediate liquidity, so a bonding curve is an automatic market maker, such as Uniswap, but with the algorithm on top of it. So yeah, as I said, the price only goes up if the demand and supply actually goes up. Some people, when they hear about bonding curves and they hear that there's a predetermined algorithm in it, they kind of assume it just goes up to go up. Obviously, you need the demand. If people pull out, it'll go down just as quickly as it went up. The best way to create a bonding curve is to relate it to an actual product. So movement on the bonding curve will relate to actual feedback of a product in the ecosystem. So if you create a bonding curve on a meme or something, I mean, it could go up, but it could just as easily get rugged. So these are best when you have a product and you build the algorithm according to specific parameters that make sense with your system. So designing a bonding curve, there are a couple key features you want to think about before you even go into it. Obviously, smart contracts, once they're deployed, they can't be changed. So you need to think about your full product cycle and what you want to accomplish when you launch it. So first off, there are a couple things you need to consider. Usually, early investors should be rewarded the most. They obviously came in early, they believed in your product, took the most risk. They should be rewarded accordingly. Opportunities for price manipulation will be taken advantage of. The bonding curve is the oracle of truth, so everybody will come back to this smart contract to mint and burn on it. As I said, if it doesn't relate to any real world value, it could get rugged. And there's an estimated amount of capital that you can expect to return when you launch your own bonding curve. It's probably, if you're a small token or a small project, probably not reasonable to expect that you will have a market cap of a couple billion, but maybe a couple million. So you should model your bonding curve based off that range. And the growth of a tokens project is likely to follow an S-curve, which I will get into shortly. There's a lot of different ways you can model it, but I do believe the S-curve is the best one. Let's see. So here are a couple of very high-level bonding curves. So first off, in the top left, you have the polynomial curve. It is probably the worst curve you could make for your project, although many of our clients request it, and we have to tell them why it's a terrible idea and move them far away from it. In the top middle, we have the S-curve, and all of these curves I will go into more depth shortly. In the far right at the top, we have a piecewise function. Here we have a stable token, so as more tokens are minted, the price does not move. we have a linear in the bottom, and then we have a sublinear in the bottom right. And all of these we will go into more depth, but just so you know, the x-axis is the token supply, and the y-axis is the price at any point. So first off, we'll start with the most basic, linear curves. Go back to algebra 1, y equals mx plus b, or the price equals the slope times the token supply plus wherever it starts out. It's very simple to launch. It doesn't give you very much control over what you want to accomplish. You can do it, but unless you have a good reason as to why you'd want to do it, I don't know if it makes the most sense, but it is simple, and it's a nice place to start. Moving on to polynomials, the one we get requested quite a bit. A lot of times by people very new to the space. I think they just want to launch something that goes up very quickly, but for many reasons it doesn't make sense. So basically in a polynomial curve, the growth starts very slowly in the beginning, and it gains acceleration and speeds up to very aggressive rates. This is about the exact opposite of what you'd want in when you're launching a token for fundraising for a project, because you have your early investors come in there in the beginning, there's not much price movement, and then as soon as a lot of investors come in, it starts moving at unsustainable rates. So whether you were the first investor or the 10th investor, it may not make that much difference, but then you come in a little bit later and the price is just going wild, which really just is not very sustainable. And this can be defined by this equation here, which you can read it. I'm not going to speak it out, but basically the larger the A and N variables are, the more aggressive the growth will be. And as I said, it's nearly the direct opposite behavior that you'd expect from a project. Sublinear curves, these make a little bit more sense. So they can be accomplished using logarithmic and root-based functions, and they reflect a more conservative approach to growth. So these immediately reward early investors. As you see, it obviously goes up very quickly, but at that point you could then set a max amount that you'd want the token really to go to, the max supply where people are still incentivized to keep buying in. So if you see in this curve here, it kind of evens out at about 60. That one starts evening out about 100. So if you only want to raise a certain amount of capital for your project, you can start you can model it this way. And if you then want it to stabilize once more people come in, this would be a good curve for you. And this equation, basically the larger the A and the N are in the equation, the more aggressive this growth will be. So the S curve, as I mentioned, this one is my favorite. So it moves very slowly in the beginning, grows aggressively in the middle, and eventually settles out once it reaches maturity. So basically, if you have a project, you want to launch it and you want to get investors out there, you could launch your bonding curve and start sharing it with your investor friends, the close community. Those investors will get the price at the token at a very similar price. But then you could basically dictate when you would want it to start growing quickly. You could then say, once I have about this much capital, this many tokens minted, I would like it to start growing quite aggressively. And that would be really good to start promoting, bull investors and a larger community to be excited about this token because it's growing very quickly. But then you could do that growth through a certain amount of time, but then you would have it stabilize at a latter portion. So you could say once we reach this level of maturity, then we would like it to calm down. And this one matches most closely to a project being launched. You have your slow growth in the beginning while you're getting everything in order, and then you're getting that tons of excitement, and then once you reach market product fit, it kind of stabilizes out, and maybe you don't need so much kind of craziness around the token. And this model does attract early, potentially large investors, and once the ceiling is reached, which you would be able to predetermine, the price steadies out. And the most complex one, which is a really good one if you have a lot of different variables that you'd like to consider in your curve, is the piecewise curve. So this function is not dictated by a singular function such as the other ones. It's dictated by multiple ones across several different areas. So if you see here in this first one, in the beginning, it's a pretty slow linear curve. then it takes a small exponential growth, and then it stables out at the very top. And you would define that as 0 to 5, it acts in this way, 5 to 10, it acts in another, and 10 on, it moves forward. This is the most complex, but if you know what you want to achieve, this is the best one. So how you read it, obviously I said the price of the token at any point will be related to the token supply at any point. And as I said, so this curve right here is a polynomial curve. It is the worst curve I've said, but it is really easy to help explain the point I'm trying to make on it. So this curve, you could say it's basically like y equals x squared. It looks pretty basic like that. Or current price equals token supply squared. It did not get the square root when it went through design there, but it's token supply squared. So if the price, if 2 tokens have been minted, the price will be 4. If you go higher, if 12 tokens have been minted, you square it, the price is 144. Pretty simple, right? However, once you start buying multiple tokens, you have slippage. We all know what slippage is, especially, with these small tokens. They can move very, very drastically if you put in a decent size order. So how you determine slippage is basically by calculating the pool balance at any time. Heads up, I'm going to go a little bit into the math here, but it's not too crazy. But essentially, so the token supply at any point or the pool balance at any point is the area under the token supply curve. So if you go back to calculus, it's the integral of the curve at any point. So if you want to find the pool balance, so basically the amount of DAI that is locked up in the smart contract when users have come in and bought, you basically take the integral of the price equation. So for this one, it'd be pool balance equals the integral of the price, which is the integral of token supply squared. And that equals 1/3 token supply cubed. If you remember in calculus, if you don't, it does equal that. And what that does is, so you can see if at 2, one sec, there we go. So basically, if I came in at 2 tokens being minted, I would see that the price is 4. And I'd be like, great, I want to buy 10 more tokens. It's going to be 40 DAI to buy those tokens. If you have a very small pool, you would be surprised to find out that that is not the case. So if you then take the integral, as I mentioned, 1/3 token supply cubed, if you find the price for tokens over the next 10, you basically want to find the pool balance at the end and find the pool balance at the beginning and minus them. So basically, it'd be the price for tokens equals 1/3 12 cubed minus 1/3 2 cubed. So basically, that's 573, which makes the effective price per token 57 DAI per token instead of that original 4. And obviously that's very, very aggressive, but we're talking about right now a very tiny pool and a very aggressive curve. But it's good to kind of explain why that is so aggressive and why that's maybe not the best option. Yep, very large slippage. So yeah, just taking that a little bit further, so you have the supply at 2, the price equals 4. That would make it, effective price of 57.3, as I mentioned. But then let's say another investor comes in at supply equals 12. They would see the price equals 144. They're okay with it. They do another 10 tokens, and you do that same equation. It's now 2,973 or 297 DAI per token. Obviously extrapolate that down a little bit more, then you have basically 10,000 DAI per token for the person who comes a little bit after that. This is not a sustainable way to bring in investors and have investors stay. As soon as they see those kinds of gains, they're out and you're back down. So obviously it's not a very intelligent way to build your curve, but it is really good to see how the slippage can be affected. And the beauty of the bonding curve is that using the algorithm, you can see how the slippage will be affected at any singular time with any sort of purchase. So in conclusion, bonding curves are only as good as the math you put into it. They're a really, really smart tool, but if you don't build them intelligently, they're going to be useless. So it's really important to set up some time beforehand to really figure out your goals, where you'd like to start, what kind of users you'd like to bring in, how much money you'd like to how much money you'd like to get in the contract before having it stabilize out. And this is what we do with a lot of our clients. We sit down with them, we do the token models, we figure out their business goals and try and translate that into what would be an effective token curve for them. But they are a smarter way to launch tokens versus just putting out an ICO or an ERC20 just with no parameters in it. They're very, very intelligent, and we've worked with a lot of really good clients on launching them. Our most notable one recently was actually Ethereum Swarm. We helped launch their BZZ token, which has been very exciting to watch. But yeah, so if they're done right, they're really, really smart, but just don't come and request a polynomial curve. It's just not a good idea. So yeah, my name is Paula Pettit. If you do have more questions, I know this one was very kind of math-based, but hopefully it was insightful in some ways. I am, as I said, I work for Linum Labs. You can email me here, or you can reach us at any of these social media links. But otherwise, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you, guys. Oh yeah, if there's any questions, I don't know how many minutes we have. Yes.
So,
Hi. Hey, thank you.
I was like running in here to make sure I could listen. Awesome. So I had a question about, like, since you mentioned you work with like different projects.
Yes.
Have you ever had a project where, I don't know, they set up their tokenomics badly, maybe one of the bad curves, and you had to go in and like reconstruct it? Like, I guess my question is like, what happens to token projects that kind of either pick the wrong model? Is there any room for adjustment? Can you like take a polynomial curve and then change it to like another one? Like, what's your thoughts around like mistakes? Because like, for example, I'm working on a DAO project where we did a very similar bonding curve to, I believe the right name is, we did like a sublinear curve.
Okay.
Maybe if you want to switch it to like, I don't know, an S curve, I wanted to hear your thoughts.
So, basically, once the smart contract's deployed, it is deployed. I'm trying to remember, we have, basically with our clients, we prefer that they launch with a curve that we believe in. We don't really like to launch curves that we don't believe in. I believe there is something you can do, but it won't be in the same smart contract. If somebody from the audience knows a little bit about that, feel free to speak up. But I do believe we have talked about it, and you'd have to kind of like move it to be honest, I think there is ways you can do it, but it's not going to be in the same smart contract. So that might not be that helpful of an answer. I apologize.
So you discussed the usage of curve for basically selling tokens. Do you have any things to share about maybe using different curves for things like vesting schedules?
No, but that is a great idea. I mean, we have done where there's basically a drop beforehand and, all the early investors, receive it before it then goes to the overall public. And that's when the actual smart contract is launched. So if you have a private sale to investors, you could not launch the token yet, have it at the private investor price, sell it out to everybody there, say maybe it's locked up for the amount of time, maybe if it's an employee, if it's an investor, if it's a developer, it's locked up, and that would operate in a separate area, and then you would launch the curve, and you would maybe start the supply at a certain area, and then it would go up from there. Yeah.
So I have a following question from the past question, so sorry. I'm actually wondering if the use case we're having with bonding curves is, I would say, a bit light in the sense that maybe we can bring them to further heights, like vesting schedules, pricing models for lending protocols, etc. Do you think there's I would say, a bull case for bonding curves to actually enter a totally new era in terms of where you can implement them, not just in pricing models for raisings?
Absolutely. So I definitely focused on the fundraising model because it's one that we've worked in quite often, but you can use bonding curves for a variety of things. You can do curation markets using bonding curves where you reward early people for curating content within a small platform, and it goes up based on that. You can launch different things. So we've launched basically NFTs on bonding curves where the NFT has a pool, and it basically creates like a market for each NFT where users can then buy in with their shares to have it go up and down, but for that small market. So there's many things you can do with them. This was definitely a very high level on as far as like the math behind it. I was an engineering background, so this was like what was interesting to me. But there's definitely a lot more you can do as far as the applications and going farther with it. So definitely.
Here, yeah.
Yes.
So, great talk, thank you. Talking about fundraising, what do you think, or Linum Labs, about the liquidity pools, the bootstrapping liquidity pools on Balancer?
The what was the last
The
portion?
liquidity bootstrapping pools on Balancer. What do you think about it?
I mean, you definitely need to have some liquidity to start. I love the bonding curves because it does create that automatic market. So, you know, if you put in that original reserve currency, the users will be able to buy and sell into it. But I mean, you definitely need some liquidity to start. But
And about the changing weights, the way of changing weights for this way of bootstrapping. I mean, in Balancer, what they do is 95, 5,
The
and then they
reserve
change to
ratio.
50, 50. Yes. Do you use that as well?
Yeah, we do different reserve ratios. So I can't add too much to that. But yeah, sorry, I can't add too much to that. But I do like that it's automatic. And with the reserve ratio, you can make it obviously be kind of an exponent of the amount of liquidity you originally put in.
Thank you.
No more question.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you guys.